Welcome to Iceland. My name is Gylfi, and I will be your brutally honest guide while we explore the village Árskógsandur, only 60 kilometers south of the Arctic Circle in the fjord Eyjafjörður. And the history of the village Árskógsandur dates back to the early settlement period. This area offered fertile land for livestock and easy access to rich fishing grounds. But a town intro like this is such a cliché that it can apply to almost every town in Iceland. But the name of the village, Árskógsandur, that is not a cliché. And one of the most distinctive features of the Icelandic language is frequent use of compound words. And Árskógsandur translates to river, forest, sand. And I know where the river is and the sandy coast is no problem, but where is the forest? So if we were to upgrade the name of the town to something that would be brutally honest, it would not be river, forest, sand. It would be river, no more firewood, sand. So to keep the video fairly simple, I am going to stick to the original name. So welcome to Árskógsandur. We start the journey on a map, and it doesn't take us long to see that this location is perhaps not the most clever one in the region, as for the cold Arctic winds from the mouth of the fjord. So the first settlers, they would actually move deeper into the fjord later, where the climate is surprisingly better actually, but the reason might also have been that they finished all the firewood, and there is actually very little documentation from this era, although archaeological findings suggest that Árskógsandur was primarily a farming settlement for centuries, with households relying on small-scale agriculture and seasonal fishing. And as transportation and trade evolved, the village began to grow from the fishing industry. So a small harbor was built here, and a fish processing plant, which became the backbone of the village for decades. But it was also the center of a mink whaling in Eyjafjörður. But I am old enough to remember this odd sight when whale meat was sold from the harbor in fresh cuts, straight from the boats. And what the Icelandic market didn't buy was frozen and then exported. And this was not just an economic activity, this was a way of life, shaping local traditions and cuisine. And I remember this meat very well. Or this old food tradition that was horrible. The meat would often smell like fish oil unless it was kept in milk for days, and many households developed their own tricks to get rid of this special flavor from it. And my trick as a kid to eat this was to use plenty of rhubarb jam and brown sauce, and I have actually not tasted meat like this for decades now, and I doubt that I will ever do so again. And whaling has actually been in decline in Iceland for a long time. And whale watching has taken over. And this deep fjord Eyjafjörður is by far one of the best places in the country to find whales. Like when I was filming for this video, the boats were very close to the village. So I flew out there, hoping to capture good footage. And it turned out to be enough to make my point in this video, or this lone whale there. And I'm sure that the tourists loved it, but to be brutally honest, this did nothing for me. Not after the spy-hopping scene that I shot 2 years ago by Akureyri. So every now and then we get really lucky and don't even have to pay for a whale watching trip. But this is however showing how good this location is here in the north. And the local port in Árskógsandur is best known for being the ferry harbor that connects the island Hrísey to the mainland. And the ferry trip to the island takes little over 10 minutes, and it's a highly recommended tourist destination. So I have a separate video online that covers the island, and it is the ferry that explains all the cars by the harbor. Many of the islanders choose to keep them there because the ferry is not good for transporting them back and forth all the time. And I had some problems while sourcing information for this video. There was just so little to find about this village from official sources. So I checked the Icelandic newspaper and the magazine database. And it was the same thing there. And I actually found an article about how little was written about this village. that actually was for a long time considered to be quite dull. But then something happened that would change everything for a village. And it started with an accident. A local fisherman suffered a knee injury while out on sea, and the injuries left him with limited options on the labor market since fishing was his life. So he and his wife started to look for ideas and went for the microbrewery idea and made a go for it, took it all the way, and opened the first craft brewery in Iceland in 2006. And they use water from the mountain behind the brewery to make unpasteurized beer without preservatives or added sugar. And the brand they built up, Kaldi, has gained a very good position on the Icelandic market. And this concept grew into a hotel, a restaurant, and beer baths. But that part of the operation is, however, undergoing some changes now, so I will only be talking about the brewery. And I stopped by there to see if I could get any photos from the operation. And to my surprise, this bar table awaited me. So this is a tourist reception, and it's possible to walk around the factory facilities, take photos and videos, and of course taste the product. And the tourist tip of the day is also that it is possible to buy beer there, cheaper than in the state monopoly store. But the microbrewery laws, they were changed recently in order to help companies like this. And although I came there just to get a few video shots, I got more or less the full tour. And I was also watching the tourists, how they reacted to this new option on the market. And I have to say that they are doing very interesting things there. And the operation has grown a lot. Like they have now entered the soda market as well. And this is a big and extremely important workplace for the village. The brewery tours alone are attracting tourists to the village, but this wouldn't have been such a success unless they have a good product. And I actually know this brand quite well, so I can say for myself that this is an excellent product. And to have local beer is also positive for the nearby communities. So if it weren't for these people that turned this misfortune into this achievement with new jobs, the town would be as hopeless and dull as they get as tourist destinations. They would only have this ferry port and no one would stop by. And this has helped the community to form a new identity or something to build on into the longer future. And although the village is small and it doesn't have any grocery store, the village Dalvík is less than 15 minutes away. And Akureyri is less than 30 minutes away. And Akureyri has a population of 20,000, so all necessary services are nearby. And it would not be a surprise if this village would look pretty much the same in 100 years from now. The population here has always been little over 100, and I'm not sure if that will ever change. And we actually don't need it to change. It's just great to have those options, towns of this size, where many of the residents can enjoy the unbelievable midnight sun that we see here, especially during summer solstice. And such moments make people forget how cold it can be here during winters. And it always makes me glad to see something to do in villages of this size, something different. And my journey will of course continue and cover each and every village in Iceland, also the dull villages. So feel free to subscribe, because my channel will by time become Iceland's largest travel guide that covers the entire island. And with that, I'm sending you best regards from my home country, Iceland.